On a crisp autumn evening, when the city lights twinkled like distant stars against the darkening sky, the Crystal Palace Hotel stood as a beacon of luxury in downtown Los Angeles. Its marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, while the scent of fresh flowers wafted through the air. This wasn't just any hotel. It was a symbol of status, where the elite gathered and the wealthy found their sanctuary. Behind the polished mahogany front desk, Rebecca Thompson smoothed her designer blazer, pride evident in her every movement. At 28, she'd worked her way up to head receptionist, carefully cultivating what she considered the hotel's refined atmosphere. She believed she could spot the right sort of guest from a mile away, and she took it upon herself to maintain the hotel's exclusive reputation. The grandiose lobby clock had just struck 11 when he walked in. Damson Idris, known worldwide for his groundbreaking role as Franklin Saint in Snowfall and his subsequent business empire, stepped through the revolving doors. He wore a simple black hoodie and dark jeans, his expression calm but weary after a long day of meetings. The casual attire was a deliberate choice. He'd learned long ago that true power didn't need to announce itself. Rebecca's carefully practiced smile tightened at the corners as she watched him approach. Despite his commanding presence and the quiet confidence in his stride, she saw only what she wanted to see. Someone who didn't fit her narrow vision of the Crystal Palace's clientele. The fact that he stood well over 6 feet tall, with an aura of quiet authority, didn't register past her prejudiced filter. "Good evening," Damson said softly, his voice carrying the warmth and depth that had made him famous. He reached for his wallet, producing a black American Express card. "I'd like a room for the night, please." The lobby was practically empty, its plush seating areas vacant, the bar nearly deserted. Only the distant sound of a piano from the hotel's renowned jazz lounge broke the silence. Rebecca glanced at her computer screen, where dozens of available rooms glowed back at her. The hotel was experiencing its typical midweek lull, yet something made her hesitate. She straightened her spine, adopting what she considered a professional demeanor. "I'm terribly sorry, sir," she lied smoothly, "but we're fully booked for the evening." Damson's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of understanding crossing his features. He'd been here before, not this hotel but this moment. Success hadn't shielded him from these small, cutting instances of discrimination. He glanced around the deserted lobby, taking in the obvious vacancy. "Are you certain?" he asked, his tone remaining gentle despite the growing tension. "I'm happy to consider any room category, and price isn't an issue." Before Rebecca could respond, the lobby doors swung open again. A couple entered, she in a designer dress, he in a tailored suit. Rebecca's demeanor transformed instantly, her smile becoming genuine and warm. "Mr. and Mrs. Davidson, welcome back to the Crystal Palace." Within minutes, she had checked them in, upgrading their room and offering complimentary champagne. All while Damson stood quietly to the side, watching the scene unfold with a mixture of disappointment and resolution forming in his mind. He waited until the couple had departed toward the elevators before speaking again. "I see," he said quietly, pocketing his credit card. The weight of the moment hung heavy in the air between them. "Thank you for your time." As he turned to leave, Rebecca felt a flicker of unease, but she pushed it aside. She'd done this before, maintained what she considered the hotel's standards. Yet something about this interaction left her feeling hollow. Outside, Damson pulled his phone from his pocket, the cool night air biting at his cheeks. He'd been considering acquiring this property for months. The Crystal Palace Hotel was part of a struggling luxury chain, and his investment team had flagged it as a potential opportunity. Tonight's encounter had sealed his decision. Within minutes, he was connected with his financial advisor. "James? Yes, I know it's late. Remember our discussion about the Crystal Palace Hotel? I want to move forward. Not just an investment, I want to buy it outright. Yes, the whole thing. Start the paperwork tonight." He ended the call and looked up at the hotel's illuminated facade, its windows glowing like jewels against the night sky. Tomorrow would bring change not just of ownership but of culture. Tonight's rejection would become tomorrow's lesson in humanity. Please consider subscribing to hear the next part of this transformative story. Your support helps us continue sharing these important narratives. The seeds of change had been planted, and the Crystal Palace Hotel was about to experience a transformation that would reshape not just its ownership, but its very soul. As Damson drove away into the Los Angeles night, his mind was already formulating plans for what would come next. The hotel's days of discrimination were numbered, though its current staff didn't know it yet. Rebecca finished her shift at midnight, blissfully unaware that her actions that evening had set in motion events that would change everything. As she gathered her belongings from the staff room, she had no idea that the man she turned away would soon become much more than just another face in the lobby. The next day would bring revelations that would shake the foundations of her carefully constructed world. Dawn broke over Los Angeles, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose. In a private office overlooking the city's awakening streets, Damson Idris sat surrounded by legal documents and financial statements. He hadn't slept. The night's events had fueled a determination that wouldn't let him rest. His legal team had worked through the night, preparing everything needed to acquire the Crystal Palace Hotel. The parent company is eager to sell, his chief advisor, Marcus Chen, explained as he laid out the final paperwork. Their luxury hotel division has been underperforming for years. Your offer is more than generous. They'd be foolish to refuse. Damson signed the last document with a steady hand. The purchase price, $157 million, represented a significant investment, but this was about more than money. Sometimes, he said quietly, the most valuable changes come at a price that can't be measured in dollars. By 9 o'clock that morning, the deal was done. The Crystal Palace Hotel, with its 100-year history and reputation for exclusivity, had a new owner. Damson spent the next few hours reviewing staff files, operational procedures, and guest feedback. The hotel's bias wasn't just in its current staff. It was woven into its very policies, hidden behind euphemisms like maintaining standards and preferred guest profiles. As midday approached, Damson changed into a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, paired with a deep blue tie that spoke of authority without ostentation. He'd built his post-acting career on strategic investments and community development, but this acquisition felt more personal. This wasn't just business, it was about dignity. If you're finding value in this story of transformation and justice, consider subscribing to support more content that matters. The Crystal Palace looked different in daylight. Sunlight streamed through the vast windows, highlighting the intricate moldings and casting warm patterns across the marble floors. Staff members bustled about, preparing for the day's arrivals. None of them knew that everything was about to change. Rebecca Thompson had arrived early for her shift, her conscience still nagging at her about the previous night's interaction. She'd pushed the feelings aside, telling herself she was just doing her job. The morning had been busy with checkouts and new arrivals, keeping her mind occupied. At precisely noon, Damson Idris walked through the hotel's revolving doors again. This time, heads turned immediately. His presence commanded attention, not just because of his height or his impeccable attire, but because of the quiet authority he carried. Several guests recognized him from his acting days, whispers and pointing fingers following his progress across the lobby. Rebecca froze behind the front desk. Her heart began to race as she recognized him from the night before, though he looked markedly different in his suit. She hadn't expected to see him again, especially not like this. Their eyes met across the lobby, and she felt the weight of her actions settle heavily on her shoulders. "Good afternoon," Damson said as he approached the desk, his voice carrying the same warmth as the night before, but now tinged with something else, authority. "I believe we met last night." Rebecca's mouth went dry. Yes, sir. I apologize about the confusion regarding room availability." Damson held up a hand, silencing her stammered explanation. "I'm not here about a room. I'm here to introduce myself properly." He paused, letting the moment build. "My name is Damson Idris, and as of 9 o'clock this morning, I am the new owner of the Crystal Palace Hotel." The lobby fell silent. Even the distant sounds of housekeeping carts and elevator chimes seemed to fade away. Rebecca's face drained of color, her perfectly manicured hands gripping the edge of the desk for support. I don't understand, she managed to whisper. Let me be clear, Damson continued, his voice carrying across the now silent lobby. Last night, I attempted to check in. You told me there were no rooms available, despite having plenty of vacancy. I watched you check in another couple moments later. I want to know why. Before Rebecca could respond, the hotel's general manager, Alexander Mitchell, emerged from his office. He'd heard rumors all morning about a sudden ownership change but hadn't believed them. Now, faced with the reality, he hurried forward with an ingratiating smile. Mr. Idris, what an honor. I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding. Had we known who you were. Damson turned to face him, his expression stern but controlled. That's precisely the problem, Mr. Mitchell. Why should it matter who I am? Why should anyone need to be famous or wealthy to be treated with basic dignity and respect? Mitchell's smile faltered. He'd run the Crystal Palace for 8 years, cultivating what he'd considered an exclusive atmosphere. Now, he realized how precarious his position had become. I've spent the morning reviewing your policies, Damson continued, addressing both Mitchell and the gathering crowd of staff members. I've read your guest screening protocols and your atmosphere maintenance guidelines. Let's call them what they really are, systematic discrimination masked in polite language. Rebecca felt tears welling in her eyes. The truth of his words cut deep, forcing her to confront her own biases. She'd always justified her actions as maintaining standards, but now those justifications felt hollow and shameful. Damson turned back to her, his expression softening slightly. I believe in second chances, Miss Thompson. What happened last night was wrong, but it's also an opportunity for change. Are you willing to learn? To see people for who they are, not what they're wearing or what they look like? Rebecca nodded, tears now flowing freely. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I want to learn. I'm so sorry. As for management, Damson continued, addressing Mitchell, there will be immediate changes. Every staff member will undergo comprehensive training in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our policies will be completely rewritten. The Crystal Palace will become a symbol of true hospitality, where everyone is welcomed with genuine warmth and respect. Mitchell nodded vigorously, relief washing over his features as he realized he wasn't being fired on the spot. Of course, Mr. Idris. Whatever you think is best. Damson surveyed the lobby, taking in the mixture of shame, curiosity, and hope on the faces before him. I made my name playing Franklin Saint, a character who fought against systemic inequality in his own way. Now, I have the opportunity to fight it in reality. Not through force, but through positive change. Your support through subscribing helps us continue sharing stories that challenge prejudice and promote understanding. The afternoon stretched into evening as Damson conducted his first staff meeting in the hotel's grand ballroom. Every employee, from housekeeping to management, gathered to hear his vision for the future. He spoke of his own experiences with discrimination, of the subtle and not-so-subtle ways prejudice manifested in daily life. Success shouldn't be a prerequisite for respect, he told them. The true measure of hospitality is how we treat every guest, regardless of their status or appearance. From this day forward, the Crystal Palace will set a new standard, not of exclusivity, but of inclusivity. As the meeting concluded, Rebecca approached him hesitantly. Mr. Idris, she began, her voice trembling slightly, I want you to know that I understand now. What I did was wrong, and I'm grateful for the chance to make it right. Damson studied her for a moment. Understanding is the first step, Ms. Thompson. Now comes the harder part, changing not just actions, but deeply ingrained attitudes. Are you ready for that journey? She straightened her shoulders, meeting his gaze directly for the first time. Yes, sir, I am. As the sun began to set over Los Angeles, casting long shadows through the Crystal Palace's windows, Damson stood in the lobby, watching the normal flow of hotel life resume. But something had already changed. There was a new awareness among the staff, a consciousness that hadn't existed before. The day's events had set in motion a transformation that would ripple far beyond the hotel's walls. The Crystal Palace would become a testament to what was possible when someone had the courage to confront discrimination head-on, not with anger, but with determination and wisdom. In the weeks that followed Damson Idris's acquisition of the Crystal Palace Hotel, Los Angeles witnessed a transformation that went far beyond mere ownership change. The once exclusive establishment began to shed its reputation for discrimination, embracing a new identity that would redefine luxury hospitality. The first changes were subtle but significant. The pretentious dress code signs disappeared from the lobby. The security guards who had previously profiled guests were retrained in authentic hospitality. Even the hotel's marketing materials evolved, showcasing diverse faces and emphasizing genuine welcome over exclusivity. Rebecca Thompson threw herself into the transformation with unexpected passion. The shame of her previous actions had become a catalyst for change. She attended every training session, often staying late to discuss what she'd learned with her colleagues. The diversity consultants Damson had hired noted her eagerness to understand and grow. "I never realized how deeply biased I was," she confessed during one particularly intense training session. "I thought I was protecting the hotel's standards, but I was really just perpetuating prejudice." If you're enjoying this story of redemption and transformation, consider subscribing to support more meaningful content. Alexander Mitchell, the general manager, initially struggled with the changes. His 20 years in luxury hospitality had ingrained certain assumptions about what made a hotel prestigious. But even he couldn't deny the positive effects of their new approach. Guest satisfaction scores were rising, and surprisingly so were revenues. One morning, about a month after the acquisition, Damson called an all-staff meeting in the grand ballroom. The room buzzed with energy as employees from every department gathered, their attitudes notably different from that first tense meeting weeks ago. "I've been watching," Damson began, his voice carrying to every corner of the ornate space. "I've seen how hard you've all worked to embrace change. Today, I want to share something with you." He gestured, and his assistant projected a series of graphs onto the large screen behind him. "These are our numbers from the past month. Guest satisfaction is up 37%. Bookings have increased by 42%. But most importantly, our guest diversity index has more than doubled." The room erupted in applause, but Damson held up his hand. "These numbers are impressive, but they're not what matters most. What matters are the stories behind them. The families who finally feel welcome here. The business travelers who don't have to wonder if they'll be turned away. The couples celebrating special occasions without fear of judgment." He shared specific examples. A group of young tech entrepreneurs who had previously been profiled at other luxury hotels had hosted a successful conference at the Crystal Palace. A family celebrating their grandmother's 90th birthday had written a touching letter about how welcomed they felt. A famous musician had praised the hotel's new atmosphere on social media, calling it a place where luxury meets humanity. Your subscription helps us continue sharing stories that make a difference in our community. Rebecca, sitting in the front row, felt tears welling up as Damson recounted these successes. She remembered the night she turned him away, how different things had been then. Her transformation had been as dramatic as the hotel's. Damson wasn't finished. "Today, I'm announcing Phase 2 of our transformation. The Crystal Palace will become a model for inclusive luxury hospitality. We're launching a training academy to share our new approach with other hotels. We're establishing scholarships for underprivileged youth interested in hospitality careers. And we're creating a community advisory board to ensure we continue to grow and learn." The announcements were met with enthusiastic applause. But the most significant changes were happening in the daily interactions throughout the hotel. The doorman who now greeted every guest with genuine warmth. The concierge who took pride in helping all visitors discover the best of Los Angeles. The housekeepers who felt valued and respected as essential members of the team. One evening, as the sun set over the city, casting a golden glow through the lobby's grand windows, an elderly couple walked in. They wore simple clothes, nothing designer or flashy. Rebecca, working the front desk, welcomed them with a genuine smile. "Good evening and welcome to the Crystal Palace," she said warmly. "How may I help you today?" The couple seemed surprised by her friendly greeting. "We've passed by this hotel for years," the woman said hesitantly. "We never thought we'd stay here, but we heard things had changed." Rebecca's smile deepened. "They certainly have. Let me show you our available rooms." As she helped them choose a suite, upgrading them at no extra charge, she caught Damson watching from across the lobby. He gave her a subtle nod of approval. Later that night, after her shift, Rebecca found a note in her mailbox. It was from Damson. "I saw you with the couple earlier. That's exactly what this place is about now. Thank you for being part of this change. Support our channel by subscribing to see more stories of positive change in our community." The Crystal Palace's transformation began to attract attention beyond Los Angeles. Travel magazines wrote features about the hotel's revolutionary approach to luxury hospitality. Business schools developed case studies about how Damson had changed the culture. Other hotels started reaching out, wanting to learn from their example. During a quiet moment in his office, Damson reflected on how far they'd come. The hotel's occupancy rates were at an all-time high, but more importantly, the atmosphere had completely changed. The lobby was now alive with diverse voices, genuine laughter, and authentic interactions. He thought about his role as Franklin Saint in Snowfall, how that character had fought against systemic inequality in his own way. Now, Damson was fighting it too, not through force, but through positive change and education. Alexander Mitchell knocked on his door one evening, looking thoughtful. "Mr. Idris, I need to tell you something. I was wrong about everything before. I thought maintaining standards meant keeping people out. Now I understand that true luxury is about making everyone feel special." Damson smiled. "That's exactly right, Alexander. Real prestige isn't about exclusion. It's about how we make people feel when they're here." The Crystal Palace had become more than just a hotel. It was a symbol of what was possible when someone had the courage to challenge the status quo. The building still stood proud against the Los Angeles skyline, its architecture as grand as ever, but its heart had changed completely. 1 year after the acquisition, Damson hosted a celebration in the Grand Ballroom. Employees, guests, and community members gathered to commemorate the transformation. The event wasn't about luxury or exclusivity. It was about community and connection. Rebecca gave a speech that brought tears to many eyes. "A year ago, I was part of the problem," she admitted. "Today, I'm proud to be part of the solution. This hotel taught me that true hospitality knows no boundaries." As the evening wound down, Damson stood at the lobby entrance, watching the diverse mix of guests and employees mingling naturally, comfortably. The Crystal Palace had become what he'd envisioned that first night, a place where everyone was truly welcome. A young employee approached him, someone who'd been hired during the transformation. "Mr. Idris, thank you for creating this environment. It's changed how I see myself and others." Damson smiled, remembering that night of rejection that had started it all. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "the most powerful changes come from the most painful moments. What matters is what we do with those moments." The Crystal Palace Hotel continued to stand proud in downtown Los Angeles, its lights glowing warmly against the night sky. But now those lights beckoned to everyone, regardless of their appearance or background. It had become a beacon of change, proving that true luxury isn't about exclusivity. It's about humanity. Thank you for joining us on this journey of transformation. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories of change and growth in our community.